Hi everyone, it's 3:30. I do believe I have a date with all of you, a knife cutting skills date. My name is Chef Magdalena Padron, and I work at Los Angeles Mission College here in Silmar, California. You can all call me Chef Maggie. This is the first time I do a live video, so this is actually kind of cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started in a little bit. Gonna let people sort of roll in here. I see a few waves and a few familiar faces. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe and healthy in these current times. Let's see. Okay. I see some people logging in here. Give it a few more minutes. So just to talk about today, I'm gonna go ahead and do a knife skills demonstration using potatoes. It is the most economic way to practice your knife skills. You're going to learn about 9 different cuts, and I'm going to go ahead and dive into the more intimidating one. I think a lot of you might have heard of it, the Tourné. We're going to start with that one. And then we'll go from there into the dices, into the batonnets or the French fry cuts, also the Juliennes, okay? So let's see here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So for the purpose of today's demo, I went ahead and peeled my potatoes already, just to make this a lot easier for me here. And I hope you guys can hear me. It is kind of loud in the kitchen, but I am here by myself, so there's no distractions. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna go ahead and start with our Tourné. This is the more intimidating cut of them all. It takes a lot of practice to do this one, and for those of you CCAP students who are going to be competing, I suggest again that you buy a sack of potatoes at the store and practice at home. Practice, because practice makes perfect. And it's, again, economical because potatoes are very, very cheap to purchase. So, again, my potatoes are already peeled. And I'm going to go ahead and take this one big guy here. And out of this one particular potato, I can get 8 Tournés. So, I'm going to go ahead and cut in half. And half again. So we're going to quarter this half and half again. So I have 4 pieces. And I'm just going to go ahead and save this other one for later. So I'm going to take one of my 4 pieces. And I like to start with the bigger ones. First, it's just easier for me to do this one particular cut with a nice chunk of potato. So things you'll need for this demo and to practice are 2 sharp knives. One is a chef knife. I have here an 8-inch knife and a Tourné knife in this case, or aka a bird's beak knife. For the Tourné, we're going to use this particular knife. I'm going to set that aside. And this, again, another sort of intimidating tool. Could be intimidating because it's not your typical knife. But it's not too bad to handle once you kind of get things going. So first things first is you want to have your 3 fingers on the handle and 1 on the blade itself, okay? And your thumb is kind of free out here. You're going to be able to use that to do the motion for Tourné. So I've got my quarter potato here, and a Tourné is, if you already know this, it's about 2 inches long, or it's 2 inches long. It has 7 sides, even sides, and it's about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Okay, it looks like a mini football, so it's perfect for today. Today's Monday, right? Monday Night Football. So we're gonna make baby footballs with this. So here we go. I already have 2 flat sides on my quartered potato. So I like to, if you don't have a ruler, if you don't have those special knife cut sample rulers, you can use your fingers as a guide. I use my pinky. My pinky is about 2 inches long, and I take that as a guide, and I sort of start with that, and I cut not the exact 2 inches because I'm going to go ahead and shave it down. So I cut both ends. I have 2 flat sides and 2 flat ends, and I'm going to go ahead and turn my potato like so, and use my bird's beak or my Tourné knife. Okay, and I'm going to do this motion when I start to tourné. So to start off, I like to remove that corner or that edge in between the 2. And you want to try and do this with one swift motion, as steady as possible. So just like so. So now I actually have created 1, 2, 3 sides. And that's how I guide myself with this particular cut. 1, 2, 3. So now I'm going to make my 4th side. I'm just going to start shaving as much as possible so that I have less to work with at the end. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to count as I go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 2 more cuts to make. And then once I have my 7 cuts, then I take my time with cleaning this particular cut. Okay, so I have 7 sides. They're not even yet, okay? So now I'm gonna go ahead and shave down and start to clean this guy up. Now again, practice makes perfect. Go out and buy a sack of potatoes and practice this cut. You won't be discarding anything because you can actually use your scraps to make a dish. I'm gonna flip my potato around because I see one end is a little bit more tapered than the other one, and I'm gonna go ahead and sort of clean this guy from the other end. I don't know if you guys can see that. So it's not even close to what it's supposed to be. But I have a general shape. Now, at the end of this demo, I will answer questions because I do have to get through all the cuts. So please be patient with me. I see people asking questions already. Someone just mentioned that they have their students start with carrots. That is another great way to start this, to practice this particular cut. So now it's getting a little bit more shape. You guys can see here. And I'm gonna go ahead and finish cleaning this guy off. If your knife starts to get a little starchy, you can dip it in the water. Your potato starts getting a little dry, you can dip it in the water. Just wipe down your station as you go. And again, your 7 sides, try to make them as even as possible. These cuts are kind of tedious. this one in particular, and which is why I wanted to attack this one first. And they are used in fine dining, restaurants, for presentation. You want to make sure that when you do make a big batch of these, you are as consistent as possible, for a couple reasons, not just with this cut, but all of your other cuts. One, for presentation. Two, for evenness of cooking. So if all your pieces are the same size or about the same size, they're going to cook all at the same speed, at the same rate. You won't have mushy pieces and then some hard pieces. You don't want that. So here we are, looking a little bit better. And I just have a few more shavings to do. And then you guys can take a closer look. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the ends off to really even this guy out. So again, this is 7 equal sides, about 2 inches long and 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And here we have a very tiny football shaped potato. And again, you can do this with carrots, potatoes, turnips, pretty much any root vegetable that's really solid. And it's taking shape. Let's see if you guys can see it. I have some shaving down to do here. But this is your general Tourné cut. Again, I see some questions. Hi, Chef Maggie, how are you? I'm not sure who that is. I will get to questions at the end. Okay. So I'm feeling pretty good about this guy. All around. Take a look on this side, and on this side. Yep. One thing I forgot to mention with this particular cut, if you are to practice at home, you can actually take an egg and practice the motion on the egg. You won't be actually cutting anything, but just getting the curvature motion of the piece is very important, because again, it can be very intimidating to use the bird's beak knife or the Tourné knife, and having to do this constantly, because it's not something that we're used to. So here is my Tourné. I don't know if you guys can see it, how clear it is. But I basically have a small football shaped potato, and I have a few here to show. Those of you who are going to be competing, I believe this is a cut you will be doing. Again, I suggest that you practice. So here's a few pieces. And consistency is more important than perfection, especially if you're starting off with knife cuts. Okay, this is your general shape that you want. For those of you who are just joining me, I did mention here is this ruler, sample cut ruler, knife cut ruler, that comes in very handy for students. I suggest that you guys get one of these. There's one made out of stainless steel, shows you all the cuts and the dimensions. and then it has some terminology and conversions over here. So that is the Tourné potato. And I'm gonna go ahead and move on to our next cut. And again, I already have my potatoes peeled. And for the next following cuts, I'm gonna use this chef's knife. And again, if your knife gets a little starchy, just go ahead and clean that off with some of the water. So, our potatoes peeled. Important thing is to always have flat sides to work with. You don't want a rolling object, a rolling product, because that is dangerous. Any rolling motion could potentially cause injury. So it is important to start with a flat piece of product. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and square off our potato. Okay. And you'll notice that it's easier to work with. And it'll come in handy in a second once we start our cuts. Okay, I do like to tell my students, if you are a culinary student, is again with this knife, 3 fingers on the handle, 1 on each side of the blade. Have a nice firm grip. I tell my students, you should have control of the knife, not the knife control of you. Okay, so it's important to have that in your mind as you are doing these things. You don't want to have a loose knife. It's just not a good thing to work with. Okay, so I squared off my potato. Let's cut off the ends here and here. And the next couple of cuts are not as intimidating as our first one, but we have the Batonnet, Julienne, and fine Julienne. I'm going to go ahead and show you those 3. And from those 3 particular cuts, you can derive the next few, which is small dice, brunoise, and fine brunoise. Okay, so I have my item squared off. I use my finger as a somewhat of a guide here. Okay, so I'm gonna shave that guy off. So now I have about a 2-inch long block here. And now from here, we can go ahead and start with our batonnet. So batonnet cut is 2 inches long by 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch. Okay, also known as your French fry cut. All right, so if that is about 1 inch or so there, this is 1/2 inch, and this is about 1/4 of an inch. And to start this off, to make it easy, we're gonna go ahead and make slabs. Okay, like so, nice and even as possible. Okay, so I have my 2 slabs, and you can see they're pretty consistent. Okay, now again, if you're practicing at home, there won't be any waste. You can use the scraps to make several dishes, like mashed potatoes, maybe some potato cakes, croquettes, all of the above. Okay, some hash. Okay, so now I have my 2 slabs. I'm gonna go ahead and, again, 1/4 of an inch, right? 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch, right there. Kind of eyeball it. Like so. Keep them nice and even. Those of you competing, CCAP students, you might want to take one slab at a time if you have time during competition. So here is our batonnet, aka French fry cut. Okay, so you have a few batonnets. And now I'm going to take a few, and from here, what did I say we were going to derive? The small dice, aka Macédoine. So Macédoine, small dice, you're looking at 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch dice. Okay, just a few pieces. And now you have small dice. So you went from a squared off potato to a slab, right? And then from a slab you derived the batonnet, and from the batonnet you derived the small dice. So a couple different cuts. I'm squaring off my next potato. And from here, I'm going to try to get the next two. Okay, so I have my items squared off here. We're going to go ahead and do our Julienne. Now, Julienne is, again, 2 inches. All of these cuts are 2 inches long before they're fabricated into smaller cuts. About 2 inches long, using my pinky as a guide. There we go. And now we're looking at Julienne. Julienne is 2 inches by 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch. So a little smaller than this guy. So actually, if you're practicing, you can go ahead and take this as a guide. So you're basically looking at half of that. Okay? Right there. Straight down. Straight down. Straight down. Okay? So now you have your about 1/8 of an inch. Maybe not that guy. Right there. Nice and consistent. And I'm just gonna sort of even that guy out. Okay, so 1/8 by 1/8 by 2. Right in there. Like so. And you can use this cut for anything, really, even peppers, once they're fully clean and destemmed and deseeded. And now you're looking at your Julienne cut, like so. Okay, from here, just like we did earlier, even those bad boys out, you're gonna do your brunoise, which is 1/8 by 1/8 by 1/8. So that's the beauty of these cuts, is they're basically fabricated from, you could call them mother cut in a sense, like so. Okay. And I believe those of you in CCAP will be making a salad, a compost salad, and you will be doing all of these cuts in your salad minus the tourné. So that is your brunoise. Oh, that's better. And finally, I'll use the same piece for a fine Julienne. Now that's the word fine, which means it's going to be a lot more delicate. Okay, potato's getting dry and my knife is getting starchy. Okay, so here we go. Now you're looking at 2 inches by 1/16 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch. So very fine. And one more. And again, this one takes some practice too. See how my first cut wasn't the best? I have a much more slimmer cut compared to this side, and the next three are pretty consistent. Right in here, I don't know if you guys can see them. Like so, okay? And now from here, again, fine brunoise. I'm sorry, fine Julienne first. Like so. Okay, set that aside. And now you have your fine Julienne. Okay, so they're a lot more delicate than the other two cuts. Okay. Ooh, let's track of what I have here. Let me take a few less. Here's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now from here, you can get your fine brunoise. Okay, which is 1/8 by 1/8 by 1/8 of an inch. Now these are super tiny. And again, a lot of these particular cuts, these smaller ones, are used for presentation as a garnish, just because they're a lot more delicate. Okay, so just a few of those. But now you have these very tiny babies, like so. Okay, so I'm going to set those aside. I'm going to wipe down my board and my knife. I'll answer some of your questions in a little bit. So, my last two cuts are the, let's see, we've got 1, 2, and 3 are the large dice and the medium dice, and those are fairly easy. A large dice is 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch, and your medium, just to talk as I'm doing this, is 1/2 an inch by 1/2 an inch by 1/2 an inch. Those particular cuts again are fairly easy, but we start with the same process of squaring off our product, whatever it may be. Carrot, turnip, potato, apple, any of those, or vegetable rather, and then we go from there. So I'm gonna go ahead and let me just fix that guy a bit. So here we go. We have 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch. I'm looking at about 1.5 inch here. So that's about 1 inch. You kind of just score a little bit, eyeball it, so you know where you're cutting. And if that's 1 inch, this is about half. So in between there, again, for competition purposes, those of you competing. If you don't have your particular ruler handy, because they probably won't let you use it, you know, use a finger as your guide, measure part of your hand, keep that in mind so that you can use that as your guide the actual day of. So 3/4 of an inch here. Now we want to do 3/4 of an inch the other way. So this is about an inch or so, and 3/4 of an inch there. Okay, and again, now 3/4 of an inch here. I am just going to go ahead and eyeball this guy. These are much larger than the ones I just showed you, which is why I attacked these last. You're looking at your large dice. I think this is the actual size of a dice, I want to say. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and stick these in here. Chef Maggie, could you please explain where on the cutting board the potato should be and how close your body is to the board? Yes. Okay. I should have touched on that earlier. So very important, your stance when you're doing knife cuts. I'll come back to the medium dice in a second. Your stance is very important. So your cutting board should be flush to the counter here. Okay. The less space in between you and the cutting board, the better. Okay, so the space between you and the actual product, I want to say your product should be about midway through your cutting board. This is important. You obviously will have a much harder time doing this up close and into your body. So enough space for you to be able to maneuver the knife is very important, and how it should feel comfortable. You shouldn't feel forced to be doing any one particular movement. So feel comfortable with your product and with the knife and the space in between you and the actual product. I hope I'm still live. I see the same people on there. So let's try this with medium dice. Medium dice is 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm looking at about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and shave this off here and gauge it like so. Pretty even. Okay, and now we want 1/2 by 1/2 by 1/2. We're going to go 1/2 inch there, and notice again how I'm standing and how I'm holding the knife and where the product is on the cutting board. Okay, like so. There you go. 1/2 by 1/2 by 1/2. Let's do one more to finish this off. Like so. Okay, that one's a little long. I'm going to go ahead and shave just a little bit more off of that one. And there we go. And now to do our medium dice. Again, try to get your cuts as consistent as possible. Like so, like so. And now you have a 1/2 by 1/2 by 1/2. Let's compare that. Okay, so see how much bigger that is than the large dice. Okay. And there you go. So I do believe I've covered all of the cuts. Tourné, Batonnet, Julienne, fine Julienne, small, medium, and large dice. And now I can go ahead and answer questions. So excuse me while I take these guys off. So I will sort of go back here and see if there's any questions from anybody. Remember to save your demo. Got it. I will save it. Does anyone have questions? Someone's challenging me to a food war. Maybe not during COVID times. Let's see. I don't see any questions. Chef Maggie, how are you? I am great. Thank you. Is a paring knife okay if they don't have a bird's beak knife? Ideally, you want to have the bird's beak knife. It is possible to do the Tourné knife with a regular paring knife. However, it's just going to be that much more challenging. The bird's beak knife is designed in this way so you can get those cuts that you need. The paring knife is the edge is a lot more straighter, so you run the risk of cutting a lot more meat off the product, if that makes sense. Let's see. Any other questions? I already explained the stands. Okay, so no more questions. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can flip the screen and show you what I have here. Again, those of you competing, here's my notes, by the way. Those of you competing, I suggest that you get yourself one of these handy dandy rulers that have the demo or the knife cuts and their measurements, some verbiage from the kitchen here, conversions. Okay, but this will come in handy at home if you are practicing this every day. It's just a good reference to have. So here's my Tournés. Someone made this one. That one's slightly big. But now you can see the difference in cuts. Okay, Batonnet, Julienne, fine Julienne, the small dice, the brunoise, and the very fine brunoise, and then the large and the medium dice. So those are the cuts. And I hope, let's see, are these cuts only used in fine dining? Not necessarily only in fine dining, but the very much smaller cuts, they are mostly used for garnishes, again, because they're so delicate and small. Let's see. Can you talk about using water to keep the cuts looking good? Absolutely. So let me just show you really quick. Those of you who are going to be competing, I have my mise cups, or AKA deli cups, with water here, and that just keeps the potato from oxidizing, just like I have here with my big pieces of scraps and potatoes. When you are doing your competition, or when you are practicing at home, to just keep good habits for competition, take your container, whether it's your bowl or your cup or your mise cups, use cold water, and keep your cuts from oxidizing and turning brown, okay? And you're able to use as many cups as possible, or as you need, for this particular for keeping your potatoes from turning brown, because nobody likes a brown potato. It just does not look good. Thank you so much, Chef Maggie. Any chance you would give our students a tour of your school someday and tell them why they should go to Mission College? Absolutely. So again, because of COVID, our college is currently closed. We are doing remote classes. We're doing online classes, but on a regular semester, you are free to book a tour with us as a group or as an individual. Again, we're located in Sylmar, California, if you are here in California. And we have about a 2-year program. If you're getting a degree, if you're only getting certification, you can be out of the program and done in about 1.5 years if you're only getting certified. So it's a beautiful campus. We have a beautiful facility, and just to give you a sneak peek, it is pretty big. And this is only the main kitchen, okay? We have about 7 kitchens total, several in the basement, where we do all our classes again on a regular semester. Due to COVID, we are teaching from home through Zoom currently, and it has been quite a challenge. Does anyone else have any more questions? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this session. Thank you everyone who joined. I see my family there. Oh, maybe we can set up a virtual tour. Yes, I do believe that's in the works. I do believe there will be a video soon coming out along with someone, either doing a voiceover of some sort or actually guiding the camera around the facility. But that is in the works. Again, you can find us at lemission.edu, some information and pictures of our campus. The students have to register the next 2 months, and they would love a virtual tour. As an alumni of the culinary program at LAMC, I cannot say enough good things about the program. Thank you, Nancy.